The battle for the Western Conference Wildcard is heating up. Teams are fighting for their playoff lives. Every game, every shift, and every goal could be the difference between making the postseason or heading home early. Who's got the momentum, who's on upset alert, and which team could be this year's Cinderella story? We know there has been a lot in the past, so let's break down the wildest wildcard race in the NHL right now. The Minnesota Wild, St. Louis Blues, big bad Calgary Flames, and speedy talented Vancouver Canucks are battling right now for the remaining two wildcard spots. This really is a three-horse race with Minnesota looking like they have it all but locked up. But don't forget, wildcard teams can do some big damage when it comes to the postseason. Recently, we have the 2023 Florida Panthers going all the way to the Cup Finals before they were able to close it out in 2024. The 2017 Nashville Predators making it all the way to the Cup Finals as well from the wild card position. How can we forget the LA Kings Cinderella story run led by Daryl Sutter all the way from the bottom to the top in 2012? The Oilers in 2006, the Dallas Stars in 2019, the list goes on. The NHL has a lot of parity, and in today's playoff format, wildcard spots can do damage. So let's talk about the Western Conference teams that are here. Let's discuss the reasons, how they're going to get there, their tactics, their system, and finally at the end, we'll talk about key players and who I think are going to do the most amount of damage in the Western Conference, with the Eastern Conference teams following later this week. Let's start with the Minnesota Wild and their absolutely strong defensive play. This team is built around defense. They've been built around defense. Sometimes if you're not a fan of the Wild, you can look at it as boring hockey, but it gets the job done, and they're one of the deepest wildcard teams we've seen in a while. They've held on to one of the higher positions in the Central Division until the Colorado Avalanche started making their surge after the trade deadline. And it's their ability here even to hold gap and backtrack in moments of great difficulty. They have a very smart team with mobile defensemen that end up flipping the pucks out of the zone, even against the NHL's most potent offenses. Even in odd man situations, the defense are mobile. They're very good with stick on puck, and the team retreats back perfectly into position. And when they do get a little bit out of position or those shots end up on net, their goaltenders in Gustafsson or Fleury are there to save the day and back up the Wild. However, it's their lack of offensive creativity and ability, other than the line featuring Kirill Kaprizov, who is unfortunately out right now, undergoing surgery for the next 4 weeks. Hopefully he'll be back just in time for the first, maybe the second round of the playoffs, but they run a really creative 2-3 offense. This is an offense used by defensive teams to try to manufacture offense, or on teams that have highly skilled players like Kaprizov. You basically float that third winger, forward, centerman, whatever you want to call it, high up with the defenseman. They get to evaluate the zone, and as soon as they see an opportunity to slash in, they jump on pucks and they help you put it in the back of the net. It works well as teams are breaking out as well too. As teams are trying to break out, that 2-3 allows you to clog the system, takes away the middle from most teams' normal breakout. Sometimes you can cause a turnover, and in this case, it ends up in the back of the net. Think of it almost like a 2-3 counterpunch, a little bit of a combo down there from Minnesota. And although it is a good system, because this team has so much focus on defense, sometimes, especially in the Central where everything is heavily predicated on offense, it can allow them to get too far behind in games, and I think that is what has happened to the Minnesota Wild in the back half of this season. The Wild have also struggled in power play and in penalty kill this year. Unfortunately, they rank 20th in power play, 30th in penalty kill. Those are very, very concerning numbers when you're heading into the postseason, especially as a wild card, because special teams really matter. Moving on to the St. Louis Blues. This is a team on an absolute heater of a streak. They've got 7 wins in a row. Now pump the brakes. Those 7 wins aren't against the most dominant teams in the NHL, but it is still 7 wins, and they're quietly climbing up the ranks. Binnington has been hot since his win in the Four Nations Cup, and we know what happens when Binnington gets hot. St. Louis wins Stanley Cups. Cup, singular. But still, the man tends to win.
You know, it was obviously the most scrutinized position on our team, but you can't take the winner out of a winner. Like, he's extremely focused, even I think sometimes too hard on himself. You know, he thinks he should stop every puck. And there are discussions where just stop all the ones you have to, and just a couple you're not supposed to. If you do that, our team will take care of the rest.
Under Jim Montgomery, the St. Louis Blues deploy a tactic of 4 down low. That defenseman likes to sneak in the back door, act as a forward, They like to get pressure towards the net. They have mobile defensemen, and they have really creative offensive tendencies. They do like to put the puck down low and look for options between the remaining two forwards as well as the backdoor defenseman, and they use a lot of momentum and movement to drive offense. That movement can be absolutely monstrous to defend against when you're going high to low, you're causing switches, you're going wide, you're switching again, and you're slashing pucks through the middle while sending 2, 3, and 4 forwards towards the net. I know there's only 3 forwards on the ice, but these days that other defenseman jumps in and acts as a forward. This offense is absolutely terrifying to play against, and it generates a lot of chances for the Blues. Equally though, this offense can cause problems for St. Louis. St. Louis at times gets caught too far deep into the zone, and a counterattack can see pucks go into the back of the net. We know a lot of teams in the Western Conference like Winnipeg, Dallas, Edmonton, Colorado, they all pride themselves on this counterattack, and they are arguably faster than the St. Louis Blues offensively and defensively as a team. Doesn't mean St. Louis can't swing with the big boys. It just means those big boys can exploit this wizardry that St. Louis sees as a strength. The other challenge they have is in the D zone. They tend to have their defensemen follow high up above the hash marks. It's almost like they're playing a man-on-man, and as the defenseman gets caught following, getting too high, a good team that knows how to get it down low can get it down low and score against St. Louis, because you end up having defensemen matching up way too high in the defensive zone and forwards that have to cover their job down low in the defensive zone. It can get confusing and pucks can go in. But if you want to unconfuse yourself and be an educated hockey listener like you are when you listen to this channel, head to my link below for Coach Jack Hahn's Hockey Tactics 2025. It will explain all of this about all your favorite teams in extreme detail, near 500 pages, one of the best values in hockey going if you want to improve your hockey knowledge and help support this channel. Now let's get back to learning more about Binnington and the Blues. This type of pressure from these elite teams can cause a goaltender like Binnington to break. He plays really well when he has a good team in front of him, but he can lose footing and ground. He's been known to be a little bit of a hothead in the past, so if you get a couple in on him early, St. Louis can crack. The power play and penalty kill have been nothing spectacular for St. Louis, 19th and 29th. Not bad, not great, but their 5-on-5 numbers is really what's carrying them. It is a 5-on-5 game, but I would like to see that go up before we consider these guys a huge threat. The 7-game winning streak, though, pretty attractive to see, and it is more than likely that they're going to sneak into this last spot. That is unless the Vancouver Canucks have something to say about it. The Vancouver Canucks are really competing with St. Louis for that last spot, and they're a totally different team than St. Louis. They're not big, they're not bad, they're not throwing a lot of body. They are offensively gifted, but not in the same way that Jim Montgomery's Blues are. They really drive that offense through Quinn Hughes, Elias Pettersson. Pettersson is out, and the other top-ranked players on Vancouver. That offense allows them to generate high-chance goals, but also leaves them vulnerable for counterattack against those same 4 teams we just mentioned across the NHL. We see an example of getting caught here where Quinn Hughes sneaks in. He gets caught on the transition. He gets a little bit of happy feet. The gap gets blown up. St. Louis is able to actually exploit it and put it in the back of the net. There's that counter punch from St. Louis, driven by that offense that Vancouver wants to deploy. Now, conversely, in the same game, here's the wizardry from Quinn Hughes. Beautiful move, doesn't overhandle it, moves that puck immediately, crosses over, bang, it's in the back of the net. The game ends up going to overtime. But what makes Quinn so special is he doesn't overhandle pucks. It's quick moves, 1-2 up, and he's thinking north-south. That's why so much of the offense drives through him. Vancouver is also exploitable in the D zone. They tend to just whack the puck out in a little bit of a chip high and off the glass that you'd hear your 13-year-old Pee-wee coach talking about. We see examples of that here. When they get trapped, the puck ends up getting in down low, they get cycled on, and then what ends up happening? Boom, little chip, boom, little chip, boom, little chip. They need to chip it out of the zone. Sometimes it ends up being a rim. The issue with these plays is that if they don't leave the zone, you're vulnerable to counterattack like you see here from the Blues, and you also find it difficult to sustain pressure. When you chip pucks out, you're not leaving with possession. When you're not leaving with possession, you don't end up really corralling the puck, and it can be difficult to get a good shot on net. It wasn't a great shot done on net here. The puck ends up back on St. Louis's stick, and they're already on the counterattack faster than you can say wild card spot locked up. The Canucks do, though, have a deceptively good penalty kill, good enough for 7th in the NHL, and they have a very respectable power play at 14th. So if you believe the power play and the penalty kill matters, and I do, I believe that's a huge nod in favor for Vancouver when it comes to the playoff race. And then finally, it's the Calgary Flames, the team I am cheering for the least as a Winnipeg fan because it is the big, bad, mean Calgary Flames. Calgary, frankly, at the start of the year, I don't think the organization thought they had the horses. I loved that they ended up injecting so much size, so much youth. You know what? If you can't beat them, beat them. Why not? That has been Calgary's meat and potatoes system all year. They play a very basic system. It is a 1-2-2 up the ice. There's nothing special about this system. It's a simple 1-2-2 forecheck in the offensive zone or neutral zone. It ends up causing a nice little turnover here. We see great puck support, Big man wins the battle. Not the greatest hands, forces it towards the net, gets his own rebound, puts it in the back of the net. You love to see that from a player like that. Just a big guy banging it home and a team keeping it simple, playing hockey a very simple way. And that is what Calgary does. If they end up in the playoffs, they're going to be a heavy team to play against. I'm not sure if they'll win a round, but they will beat the heck out of whoever they play. And if they do end up making it to the second round, they're going to beat the heck out of them too. Unfortunately, sometimes those big men, though, don't have the greatest feet. Again, you can see it here. It's a little bit of a choppy, sloppy skate. It's a quick turnover, bang, the shot's on net. And that's just what ends up happening when you're a little bit newer to the league, let's say. It's just the way it goes. But plays like that can be countered by plays like this: life and limb, block shots, meat and potatoes, throw body, throw face, throw skates, throw sticks, throw everything you can at the net. See what ends up staying out. Unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't. This is a penalty kill scenario. Once again, it's number 26th in the NHL. It's not a top-ranked penalty kill, but you see attitudes and people who are willing to put their face in front of sticks, pucks. You got the makings of a good team. More simplicity here from the Flames. Big men getting in on that face-off. Really simple play. Tie up your guy, do your job, find that loose puck, bring the Seattle Kraken down low, leave it out for the defenseman for a booming slap shot, and put it in the back of the net. And I put these clips in order of good, bad on purpose because that is the Calgary Flames. For everything they do well, something ends up going not so well. For every strength they have, it ends up turning into a bit of a weakness for them. The goal of the Calgary Flames is to keep the game really tight and really close. As long as it's tight and close, they feel they can get out there and score a goal like you see here on this power play. When the game is tight, when the game is close, you end up getting the puck into the hands of your playmakers, the Huberdeaus and the Kadris. You end up waiting for power play situations, and you end up putting it in the back of the net with beautiful plays like this. And then sometimes you wonder, how do you get those power plays, especially if you're not one of the best power play teams in the league? Well, you deploy stuff like this, the everyone loves Kadri attitude. Get them in there, get them pulling guys, get them annoying guys, and then get guys to throw him to the ice, stick him, whack him, do whatever you got to do. That's his game. That's an attitude that the Calgary Flames do bring. He is a tougher guy. He's an agitator. He's a divisive player when you talk to fans, but he's effective when he's on your team. Because, I mean, once again, this is what you're looking to avoid. You end up breaking out of the zone on a meat and potatoes play. It's a quick little skill turnover. That skill turnover ends up in the back of your net. It's good, bad, good, it's bad, bad, it's good. Calgary Flames. Okay, so there are your four teams. There are the key strengths. There are the key weaknesses for each. Each team has a certain reason that they're in the playoffs. Each team is a good team because they are in the playoffs. You're in the top half of the league or pushing for the playoffs, but each team has a question mark behind them. And inevitably, if you're going to be closer to the middle of the bottom of the standings, you usually have an injury. When we look at St. Louis, it's Buchnevich, it's Parayko, Torrey Krug's on IR. Parayko should be back in time. That's a huge loss for St. Louis, but if he does make it back in time for playoffs, it becomes a very scary team. Vancouver's got Pettersson, Hedel, and Höglander out right now, so that's going to affect your race to the playoffs when you have 10, maybe 12 games remaining. Calgary Flames with Backlund and Mantha, and the Minnesota Wild with Kirill Kaprizov and Joel Eriksson-Ek. Now, who is my prediction? I think Minnesota's going to hang on because their point total is just too high. I'm not sure what they're going to do in the playoffs. I don't really see a Cinderella story happening for Minnesota, but I've been wrong before. That's why we play the game. We don't win them on YouTube. We don't win them on the stat sheet. Just with Kaprizov being out due to that surgical repaired something that they never tell us about in the NHL, due to his surgery that he had to take, it may affect him going into the playoffs. He's been an absolute powerhouse. If he was in the lineup, I'd feel much better about them, but I don't feel great about their chances playing the Vegas Golden Knights without Kaprizov. I do think it's going to be St. Louis that ties up the last wild card spot. They just have all the makings of getting there. and the fact that Parayko should be coming back soon-ish is going to be a lot of reinforcement for an already deep team. And finally, it's the Binnington factor. When that team gets hot in front of Binnington, they can really do some damage. So the Winnipeg Jets or whoever ends up first, whether it's Dallas or Winnipeg, better watch out because St. Louis may be a tricky first-round matchup. My heart says I'd love the Canucks to get in for their excitement and for the fact that I think they're a better matchup for the Winnipeg Jets, even though they just beat the Jets. But overall, you can't count Vancouver out. They have a dynamic offense. We have a lot of games left to go. I know it doesn't feel like a lot, but it's quite a lot when the points are this close. We'll end up seeing who cracks into that final wildcard spot, but I think you can bank that Minnesota's going in. You let me know down below in the comments, who do you think is going to take those final wildcard spots? Who do you want Coach Ryan D to break down next after we've done the wildcard races? Which teams do you want to see more in depth here on this channel? Thanks for sticking around, and we'll catch you in the next video.